Well, I wonder if it's warmed up enough yet. Not bad. Hey everyone, my name's Matt and welcome back to Cobb Hill Farms. We're gonna do some more shop work today, but not here on the 460. We're gonna work here on the Farmall Super M. I got a couple things I want to get done on that before we use it for feed grinding here in the next week or so. Got a couple leaky hoses, so we're gonna get them taken care of and just kind of check it over and make sure it's ready to go to run the feed grinder. First thing we got to do, seems like with any other Farmall, you got to take the hood off. So the oil leak we got to tackle is right in here. I think we're going to replace this hose too while we're at it. That's the swivel end. From 1952 to the beginning of 1954, Farmall made a little over 57,000 of these Super M's, with a little over 12,000 of them being made at the Louisville, Kentucky plant. This was one of those 12,000 that was made at the Kentucky plant. The way it was explained to me was Farmall had such a demand for these larger tractors in that time frame that they couldn't keep up with demand. So they set up an assembly line for the Super M's at the Louisville, Kentucky plant, where they made the Super A's, the B's, and the Super C's. So that's why there was such a limited production of the Super M's made at the Louisville, Kentucky plant versus the normal H&M plant at the Rock Island, Illinois facility. Whether that's accurate or not, I really don't know, but that's the way it was explained to me. While it's in here and it's been sitting here for a couple days, I want to check the oil level on the engine to make sure it's at the proper level. Yep, starting to drip. The other thing I'd like to do on this tractor is get the charging system working. Right now it's not working and I really don't know why. It's got just a single wire Delco Remy alternator on it. All the wiring is present and in good shape. So hopefully with minimal expense, we can get the charging system working again. If not, well then we'll live with it the way it is for right now. But we can't do that until after we get the hydraulic hoses put back on. Well, it's 3 days later and I got 2 new hoses made. Wasn't too awful bad for a 4 foot of hose and 4 pipe fittings. It was about 75 bucks. Well, let's see, we're gonna start with the drain hose, or return hose I should say. Alright, now for the other hose. This one I made 3 inches shorter than what the old one was. I probably could have stood to make it a little bit shorter yet, but we'll see. Well, let's see. Would it be better to take that 90-degree fitting out and have that hose come in like this? I think that oil filter housing would be in the way and it'd put too much of a bend in this hose, and it'd be in my way to change the filter if I have to. I think that'll work, and I might even be able to pivot that fitting back to put a little bit less kink up in here. I think that's gonna work. What I wouldn't give for a nice insulated shop where it's always 60 degrees. Maybe someday. We got to put hydraulic oil in this, and one thing I've been wanting to change for a while is this standpipe system that somebody put in here. Obviously they had a return hose of some sort they wanted to run back to it. That's what this quick coupler must have been for. But we're going to get rid of all this. We can check the oil level and then just put a pipe plug in the hole when we're all said and done, but I want to get rid of that. I don't like it. Well, will I just get lucky and be able to untwist the whole thing, or am I going to have to take it apart piece by piece? Well, I guess I'm going to have to take some of it off. Well, I guess we'll just twist it in every which direction until we can get the thing off of here. In this tractor and all my antique tractors for that matter, I use this Napa brand premium heavy duty tractor hydraulic and transmission oil. When it comes to these older tractors in the hydraulic oil, it really doesn't much matter. Manufacturer specifics anyways. These hydraulic systems are pretty basic and simple. The only time hydraulic oil really matters is when you get into a tractor that uses a wet brake system. There's chemicals that are added to that hydraulic oil that helps with brake anti-chatter and helps the life of the brake discs inside that are submerged in oil all the time. But when it comes to these antique tractors, as long as it's a good clean hydraulic oil, that's really all that matters. Well, let's see if I can reach it with my pinky finger. Yep, I can reach it with my pinky finger. That'll be good. We'll have to run it and then we'll recheck it later. Put our pipe plug back in here instead of that conglomeration of pipes. Looks like we got another leak here. Might have to replace that hose too. Well, I got so busy thinking about other stuff that I put this one in the wrong spot. This hose here is supposed to go to the T-fitting. This hose here is supposed to go to the valve. I'm gonna get all this old pipe tape off of here so we can start fresh. Well, I gotta make sure I put this pipe tape on there in the right direction. I do prefer this over pipe dope. I've used both over the years. It's basically a liquid form of pipe tape. I don't know. I just seem to like the tape a little bit better. Getting the hoses hooked up right the first time is very imperative, especially with hydraulic systems. Before I took the hoses off of this tractor, all four ends on these hoses are all the same. So I came over, I made a set of notes, so I knew where each end of each hose went. So that way, if there was any question going back together, all I had to do was come back over and look at my notes. And I'm really glad I did, because that would have created a problem. All right, let's see if we got any leaks this time around. Now let's see if we have any oil leaks at the power steering motor. I don't think so. Everything looks pretty good and dry. No real residual oil. Nothing laying on top of the valve cover that looks fresh. I think we're good. Well, I'd say after replacing those 4 power steering lines, I would say that our hydraulic leaks are fixed. We're going to let any air that's in the system purge its way back to the reservoir, and any aeration that's happened in the reservoir, we'll let that settle out. And then at some point here, we'll recheck the oil level and make sure that that's up to the bottom of the fill plug here on the side of the reservoir. So I think we're pretty good as far as all our oil leaks go. Now it's on to the charging system. First thing we gotta do is get a baseline voltage at the battery, so that way we can check everything else downstream and know if we have any voltage loss anywhere. From the factory, these tractors were originally equipped with a 6-volt positive ground system. This one's been converted to a 12-volt negative ground. So our battery voltage is 12.6. Now we're going to check battery voltage on the battery terminal of the alternator. 12.6. So we know we're getting voltage from the battery up through its circuit to the battery terminal on the alternator. Now we got to check switch power from the key switch to the alternator. I got nothing with the key off. Now if I turn the key on, 11.8, that ought to be good enough. Alright, let's start this thing up and see what we got voltage wise. Make sure she's in neutral. 12.3 volts. She's not charging. Well, we know we got 14 volts at the stud here on the back of the alternator, and that should follow this red wire all the way up, down, and I believe it goes up to the amp gauge. The head of this screw is stripped, so I can't get a good bite on it. Might have to put a pair of vice grips on it. So when it comes to electrical systems, I start at one end of the circuit or the other and systematically work my way through it. I don't jump around, because 9 times out of 10, by jumping around, you're going to miss something. Been there, done that. So I've learned that start at one end or the other. Ooh, look at that. Bees nest galore. It's a good thing I did this in the wintertime and not in the summer months. At the amp meter, we have 2 wires that are hot all the time. This wire here is a direct feed from the battery terminal at the alternator, feeds through the amp meter and then goes out this terminal, which goes to the starter, and that's where it feeds charging electricity downstream. See if we're getting anything through the amp meter. 12.6, 12.6. Let's start it up and see what we're getting. Says we're getting 18 volts right now. That's overcharging, but it's better than not charging at all. Let's see what we're getting at the battery. Still only 12 volts. From the back of the amp meter, that red wire goes all the way down through here, turns and comes right over here to the starter switch. The button switch is mounted on top of the starter. This is where power is transmitted from that charging system back into the main power cable going back up to the positive side of the battery. So we gotta check and see if we're getting our charging voltage right here at this stud. Well, we're getting 14 volts there. still only getting 12.5 volts. Alright, so here's what we're going to do. Right now, I got 12.2 volts at the positive and negative terminals of the battery. If I take my negative and I go to the case, right there I got 14 volts. But I go back to the battery, I only get 12 too. Alright, so here's what I figured out. If I have the positive lead of the meter on the positive terminal of the battery, take the negative lead, go to the battery, I only get 12.2 volts. If I take that negative lead and I scratch a nice clean surface on the case of the tractor, my battery voltage jumps from 12.2 to 14 volts. So what that's telling me is I'm not getting a good ground back to the battery. Judging by the looks of this cable, I might just put a new cable on it and be done with it. Well, I don't want to come off of there. Well, I guess we had to get something a little bit bigger out. I don't know if it's going to work or not, but well, it's turning. Well, that spacer is loose. This does just not want to let go. Come on, there we go. I went through the electrical drawer that I have and I found this pre-made battery cable. This is one that I probably just bought from the auto parts store at one time or another for something that I didn't end up using. I shined up the bolt where the lug contacts the head of the bolt, and then same thing with the spacer that goes on here. So that way we know we got good clean steel contact for proper ground. This charging system has never worked since I got the tractor. So this has been something on my list that I want to get fixed, because one thing I hate having to do is charge batteries. Got a couple other tractors around here that need the charging systems revamped or put back on, or whatever the case may be. There, now we can put the negative cable on. All right, let's see what we got now. All right, I had to walk away from this job a little bit because I was getting a little bit frustrated because things weren't making a whole lot of sense. So I did a little bit more testing off camera, and I have this voltmeter, the one I've been using throughout my testing process on this. And from the alternator all the way back to the battery, I was getting anywhere from 13.5 to 14 volts. But positive to negative posts, I'm only getting 12.2, 12.3 volts. So just for the heck of it, I got out my other voltmeter, which this is a dual volt and ohm and amp clamp as well. I've had this for a lot of years. I primarily try to use this just as an amp clamp to test amperage draw, particularly on glow plug systems, but I have used it in the past as a voltmeter. And when I tested with that meter at the alternator, I only got battery voltage, 12.2, 12.3 volts. And that was the same voltage I was getting at the battery. I tested again with this meter at the battery. So I went back to the alternator and literally had both meters side by side. With it running, I get 14 volts on this meter. I grab this meter and 5 seconds later, test it, I'm getting battery voltage. So I'm not sure what exactly is going on here. So what my plan, I think, for this is I want to get a third meter and see which one that meter corresponds with. The 12.5 volts here or the full 14 volts here. So I'm gonna stop this right here. This video is getting long enough. So I'm gonna break this into a two-part video, and we're gonna do the part 2 will be figuring out the charging system on this and what we have to do to fix it. Before I end the video, I wanted to do a brief little update on the Farmall 460 project. Parts are available. However, parts are a lot more than what my budget allows for at this point. So this project's going to be on hold for the time being until I start putting more money away to allocate for this project. I do want to tear apart this planetary gear set. I need to find out whether that needs to be replaced or not. If I don't have to replace it, then that would save quite a bit of money. If I do have to replace it, then I have some choices to make. They make 2 different versions of this. The standard version, which utilizes the same ball and ramp system that this existing one does. Or for double the money, they offer a sprag clutch version, a heavy duty version. That's something I'm gonna have to ponder which way I go for the amount of use and the type of use that this tractor sees on our farm. Is it really worth spending double the money for the heavy duty style clutch? So we'll get back on this at some point. I'll do a video on tearing this apart so we can see what it looks like. But for right now, we're pretty much at a standstill with the Farmall 460. And we're gonna be looking at the charging system on the Super M. So hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. If you like our channel, as always, we ask you to subscribe. We hope you have a great rest of your day. We'll see you next time.